Dude, I don't know the rest of the words yet. Morgan Wallen kinda has all the songs that they sound the same, but they're a little different, and that's why I always listen to his albums. We Let the Liquor Talk. Morgan Wallen always sings about whiskey too, which is why I want to get him on the podcast. I feel like he'd be a good person to have on. We are rolling. Okay, let's get into it. Episode 114. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to episode 114 of Who Gives A Dram. I am your host, Connor Gilbert, and I hope everyone had a great weekend, and thanks for checking out the podcast. We have a lot of things to chat about today, as we do every week, and I feel like every week I'm like, all right, we're going to be like 45 minutes tops, but then it ends up being an hour. And that's just more work for me for editing, but it's okay because I love you guys. In the spirit of maintaining our tradition of Irish Whisky Month here at Who Gives A Dram Studios, we are going to be continuing our Irish whiskey reviews with something that's a little bit different. And I'm also going to be reviewing 2 bottles today. Not just one, but 2 bottles. And those 2 bottles come from Keeper's Heart. And it's going to be a Irish American blend and then a bourbon Irish blend for the 2 bottles that we're going to be reviewing. I think this is the first time I've reviewed 2 different bottles on one podcast, but Keeper's Heart sent these bottles to me a few months ago. They were on Bourbon with Friends. I couldn't make the podcast because of some family things that had happened at the time, and I haven't really touched these since then. I kind of forgot I had them, and I was going through what whiskey I had to drink this week on Irish Whisky Month, and Keeper's Heart made itself presentable to me in my many boxes down in the corner over here, and I was like, you know what? Let's just get them both. Let's do them both, and that's what we're gonna do. So thank you again, Keeper's Heart, for sending these to me and providing these for me to review. I wish I could have joined on Bourbon with Friends, but we're doing it here on Who Gives A Dram. So this is going to be interesting. We'll talk more about the Keeper's Heart whiskeys as we get closer to the review. I will open them right now, though, so I don't have to do it when it's time to review. I have not opened this Irish American blend, which is a blend of Irish and 95.5 rye whiskey, which is cool. I wonder if it's MGP's 95.5 rye. I do not know. And then the bourbon Irish mix. I don't know what the mash bill is. I'm sure we'll get it later on when we do some research on it. There's your cork pop. Fake cork, red flag. There's bottle number uno. Now we'll do bottle B. Bottle number 2. Oh, that was pretty good. Fake cork. All right. So how was everybody's weekends? I had a great weekend. I went to Colorado this past weekend. It was fun. Met some cool people. I'm sure you guys want to hear about it. I'm sure me and Paul will break it down on a Bourbon with Friends episode, but I'll talk about it a little right now. I got back home. Well, I left Friday morning early. I left for the airport around 3 a.m., and I got back home early Monday morning around 1 a.m. But it was a fantastic weekend. And, I didn't know how much I wanted to see the Rocky Mountains until I was flying over the Rocky Mountains, and I was like, wow, this is something that I'm very happy I'm seeing. And I suggest you guys all do the same, because something about seeing the Rocky Mountains in person is euphoric and almost like an out-of-body experience. It's not something that you realize you want to see until you see it. And I feel like that's kind of how I feel about the ocean. I know there's plenty of people that listen to this podcast or people that I know that don't get to see the ocean almost every day like I do. I live 10 minutes from some of the most popular beaches in New England, and I feel like I take that for granted, and I feel like that's how it is in Colorado as well. Like people are just kind of like, oh yeah, those are the Rocky Mountains, whatever. Where I'm like, oh yeah, that's just the Atlantic Ocean, whatever. But um, that's the vibe I got with people out there, and I will say that Colorado had some of the best views I've ever seen, and it did beat Scotland's views. Although Scotland is rich in history and it's the motherland, there's something about the Rocky Mountains that once you see them in person, it's crazy. So I would suggest you make a trip out to Colorado, western Colorado, or central, wherever the Rocky Mountains are, before you die. It was very fun. Friday night, we went to 291 Distillery. We did a impromptu barrel pick. Didn't think we were going to do one, but we picked a 10-gallon barrel, so a small one. And we are going to bottle that. It's bourbon, and I picked it, of course. And that was very fun. We ended up going out for a little bit after. I experienced a little bit of downtown Colorado Springs, which I really liked, by the way. I really enjoyed Colorado Springs. It felt like a mix of where I live and another one of my favorite little towns called Plymouth, New Hampshire, which I think I've talked about on the podcast. And it's like you took those two downtown areas, expanded it by a little bit, and put the Rocky Mountains in the background. It was very cool. Then we woke up, drove a few hours over to Vail, or technically Edwards, Colorado is where we stayed. And we went to 10th Mountain Whiskey Distillery in Gypsum, Colorado, and we did another barrel pick there. So Friday and Saturday consisted of 2 days of drinking a lot of whiskey. Friday especially, after getting no sleep and then just being handed barrel-proof pours at 291, courtesy of Eric and Emily. So shout out to you guys. But we had a lot of fun on each stop. Sunday was utilized as more of a kind of recovery day / we went over to Vail for a little bit and experienced that. Went out to dinner with Paul and I, and we just kind of chilled and utilized that day to kind of let our bodies recover, because it was a time change for us as well. I was 2 hours behind. I'd never gone 2 hours behind before in terms of time changes. So I was a little bit messed up from that. And I'm still a little bit messed up from that in terms of like being able to sleep. But hopefully that corrects itself soon. I think it will. And we're able to rock and roll on our normally scheduled programs here. But yeah, got back Monday night. It was fun. The flights were great. I had 4 great flights. I was early to Colorado, which was great, and I was early getting home. So it was great. It was awesome. And I want to give a special shout out to Eric and Emily over at 291. I want to give a special shout out to Rye, Connor, and Brian over at 10th Mountain, who treated us so well, and Amber, even though I called her Emily. The 4 of y'all were great over at 10th Mountain. I want to give a special shout out to my boy Matt, Colorado Spirits Collective, on Instagram. He joined us for Friday night and Saturday. Stayed at our house Saturday night. It was a great time. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you, Matt, and I hope to see you again soon. One of my really good pals from Instagram. It was just cool being able to meet him in person. We took a bunch of pictures together, as I'm sure you saw. If you listen to this podcast, I'm sure you follow me on Instagram. So if you don't, at Who Gives A Dram. But yeah, it was just it was a great time, a great night, a great weekend. And I'm super happy that I was able to experience Colorado and experience Rocky Mountains. And I think it's going to be a place that not only I go to again, but we go to again on business. I think we're going to be making more visits out to 291 and to 10th Mountain, and hopefully some of our other friends in Colorado as well. So thank you all, 291, 10th Mountain, for the hospitality. It was greatly appreciated. You made us feel at home, and I am very excited to come back out there again. So thank you to both of you guys, and thank you to Matt for joining. What what else did I get? Oh, I brought home a bottle of 291 barrel proof rye, which I'll do on the pod. I'll review it at some point. Lots of 291 on the shelf. I saw a lot of Smoke Wagon on the shelf in terms of the few liquor stores I went into, and a lot of Hidden Barn. Shout out Jikey Zykin. But those were the only ones those were like the only bottles that I saw on the shelf that you don't really see on the shelf where I'm from, which was kind of cool. When I go to different parts of the country, I like to see what's on the shelf that's not on the shelf in my area. So what's not on the shelf on Connecticut or Rhode Island. Even in New Hampshire, I like to go out there and see what's on the shelf. In Kentucky, you find Early Times Bottle and Bond all over the place. I don't find it here. Colorado, you find 291 everywhere. You find Smoke Wagon everywhere. 10th Mountain everywhere. Hidden Barn everywhere. Don't see any of those out here for the most part. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, the food was good, I guess. I mean, there was nothing really different about the food. We went to our buddy Brother Luck, who we had on Bourbon with Friends early in my stint on the Bourbon with Friends podcast. We had him on over a year ago, and we ate at his restaurant, and it was great. I had some like blue cornbread or something of that nature, and something else. I don't remember. I was kind of hammered at that time, but that's neither here nor there. Other than that, I think that's all of that I have to talk about. It was a great trip. I have no complaints, and I'm happy I went. We have this week, so I didn't really have a lot of notes for this week in terms of like things to talk about. I've been hammering that new Morgan Wallen album pretty hard the past few weeks. I really like it a lot, and it's grown on me. Definitely grown on me. But other than that, I did watch a few movies coming back from Colorado. There's one in particular I want to discuss, which we will. And unfortunately, I was not able to watch Edwards versus Usman 3 on Saturday night. Unfortunately, I could not. I wasn't home. I wasn't able to make the time to do it. But I do want to comment on that decision real quick. For those of you that don't know, Leon Edwards, who was fighting as the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, was rematching Kamaru Usman, number 1 contender, number 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, or 4 maybe. And Leon Edwards ended up beating Kamaru Usman by majority decision, which means 2 judges scored the contest for Leon Edwards, and 1 judge scored it a draw. And Leon Edwards won. Now, I just wanted to say that based on my last podcast, I did think that I think my official prediction was Leon Edwards by knockout. But regardless, I did think Leon Edwards was going to win, even though most of me was saying Kamaru Usman. I just thought his knees were too bad. He's a little bit past his prime, maybe. He's still one of the GOATs, but from what I heard, it was a war. I heard Leon Edwards got a point taken off for fence grabbing, which is not uncommon in cage fighting when there's a octagon around you, a chain link fence around you. The co-main event, Justin Gaethje beat Rafael Fiziev by decision. I heard that was an absolute war. Justin Gaethje gets a big win. What do they do with Justin Gaethje? I don't know. Does he rematch Dustin Poirier? Does he get the winner of McGregor-Poirier or McGregor-Chandler? Does he... I don't know. I don't know what he does. I don't think he's going to move up. But and Gunnar Nelson beat Brian Barberena by submission in round 1, which I believe I predicted. Maybe not round 1, but it was a lot of decisions on the card. 4 of the 5 fights was decisions, so I'm sure it went. Well, the card started at 6 p.m. Eastern, so it didn't go late into the night, but it was definitely a longer card, I'm sure. And our next fight, which is this weekend, Saturday, March 25th, is a barn burner of a main event. Marlon Cheeto Vera versus Corey Sandhagen, 2 of the top ranked bantamweights in the world. And damn, that fight slaps. That fight is awesome. That is a great main event. If Cheeto is able to win, I think he gets a title shot next. Especially if Sugar Sean fights for the title next, he'll get the winner. Because if Cheeto Vera is able to beat Sandhagen, O'Malley coming off his victory of Peter Yan, that rematch is probably the biggest fight in the bantamweight division outside of Aljamain versus Henry Cejudo, which is happening fairly soon. I think that's happening. I forgot, but Holly Holm is the co-main. Always nice to see Holly Holm. Then we have Macy Barber on the card. She's a up-and-comer, young. I think she's like 25, 24. She's a stud. So it should be a fairly entertaining card. It's, great main event for a fight night. I will say that. Great main event for a fight night. The fight nights need to have like violent fights as the main events to get people to watch. It can't be a technical matchup. It has to be a barn burner. That's what Cheeto Vera versus Sandhagen is going to be. So my official prediction is going to be Marlon Cheeto Vera by knockout. He may win by decision, but I think Sandhagen's very good. I just think Cheeto Vera is on a impressive roll right now, and I think he's going to get the win because I do think the MMA guys want us to see Cheeto Vera versus Sean O'Malley Part 2, potentially for a UFC title. So that's really all of the UFC news I have for this week. Like I said, I wasn't able to watch the fight. I will, once the fight is available for free, I will watch it and go through and break it down like in my head while I'm watching it. But until then, it is what it is. But I did watch a movie on the way back from Denver to Detroit for my layover. And it was really hyped up to me by my brother and sister. Shout out to Kale and Grace. They said it was a great movie, and it got kind of creepy at parts in a way that I think is creepy. So what I think is creepy in movies is very specific. And it's kind of hard for me to explain exactly what I mean, but I'll do my best. Obviously, jump scares and things of that nature are spooky, but what gets me the most is when people are moving in ways they shouldn't be, or things are out of place, or there's a weird focus on the camera that shouldn't be in focus, or maybe like a kind of a strange camera angle paired with some good spooky music. Always makes me always shivers me timbers a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. There's one scene that makes me think of this more than anything, and by weird movements I don't mean like contortionists and people getting out of boxes, because I mean The Exorcist is the classic example. That is freaky because she's kind of like tiptoeing backwards on the stairs. That's kind of weird. But like in It Chapter 2, when he gets out of the box and he's all contorting and getting out, that's not creepy to me. What's creepy is when people are places they shouldn't be. And like when things are happening that are very out of the ordinary, that are not supposed to be happening. For example, in this movie, The Menu, which I will say the plot here in a minute, but there's a scene where what's her name? Anna Taylor-Joy, who's the main character, or one of the main characters, is in the bathroom kind of taking a smoke break, and she looks out the window, and there's the head chef, who at this point is kind of a mysterious figure, just walking through a field with a big pair of angel wings. And that was to me like, that is very weird. Like if I saw that, that would be very, very strange and spooky to me. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, like things that shouldn't be happening. And also, um, um, there's a scene in Insidious Chapter 2. I think it's Insidious. I think it's the first one where there's a flashback scene and the mom is going up to is working at a hospital, which is in modern time an abandoned hospital. It's a rundown hospital, but the flashback is everybody's working there. It's like in the 50s or 60s or whatever. She takes the elevator to go upstairs, and there's an old man that goes into the elevator right at the last second with her and standing right next to him. And it's one of her patients who does something creepy right before, in the scene before. And she's talking to the old guy. She's like, shouldn't you be in your hospital bed? Like, aren't you doing okay? And the guy just looks forward, doesn't look at her, doesn't say anything. And the door opens and he kind of just walks out. And the way he walks out, I can't even explain it, but the way he walks out of the elevator, I thought I saw it differently the first time, and I think that's just how I continue to see it in my mind. In reality, I think it was a pretty normal walk, but just the way I thought I saw it at first, it freaked me out so much. And it was just a weird thing. It was just weird. Just that's all it is. There was no jump scares, there's no music. Later, she comes to find out that patient had died earlier. So she wasn't sure who she was in the elevator with, and that kind of goes down the road of some demon or whatever, insidious, whatever. But that's what freaks me out. So to bring it all back full circle, my brother and sister said, yeah, there's some scenes in this movie that make it creepy, and you'll know when it starts. But just to give a quick synopsis of what the menu is. The menu is a 2022 American comedy horror film, which is an accurate way to depict it because there are some pretty funny parts in it. And it is almost like a satire. It is produced by Adam McKay, who did Step Brothers and Anchorman and almost every single Will Ferrell project. Plus, he did Vice. He did The Big Short. Very talented guy. It was directed... Oh, Will Ferrell also produced this movie. Interesting. Okay. Ralph Fiennes played the chef. Hong Chow played his assistant, and Anna Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Janet McTeer, Reed Birney, Judith Light, and John Leguizamo played diners who attended his exclusive restaurant. The menu had its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 10th and was released in the United States on November 18th, 2022. The film grossed over $79 million worldwide on a budget of $30 million and received positive reviews from critics. So basically, the point of this film, the menu, is Nicholas Holt's character, his name is Tyler, brings Anna Taylor-Joy's character, whose name is, we think, Margot, to an island called Hawthorne, or it's to a private island, to a restaurant called Hawthorne, which is an exclusive restaurant owned and operated by celebrity chef Julian Slowick. And again, it's on a private island, and there's other. It's supposed to be a very exclusive event, and there are several other diners that are there that are all rich. There's a very famous food critic. John Leguizamo plays like a washed-up actor. He brings his assistant with him. There's 3 business guys that work for the guy who funds this restaurant and the celebrity chef Julian Slowick. There's another rich guy that always goes, brings his wife. Like he's like an old hedge fund guy or banker guy or whatever. And a few other people. You can tell from the beginning that the way they cut the camera and the way they use sound and music, that this is not going to be a normal, like this isn't, there's something bad's going to happen. And you come to find out that essentially this Julian Slowick guy brought everybody there to kill them because he blames them and the world and society for ruining the art of food and for destroying his industry. And basically, they operate this dinner, this like 8-course dinner around, more morbid ideas, and it's just it's definitely, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like he one by one he kind of exposes everybody who's there. Like the old guy was a cheater and he was not monogamous with his wife, and he made Anna Taylor-Joy's character at one point like watch him jerk off or something like that. Tyler or what's his name? Nicholas Hoult. Tyler in the movie. He's like just like a total dick, and he is just trying. He's a foodie, but basically he dies because Julian Slowik says that his type, who are casually interested and passionate about the craft, is what's ruining the industry. There's a lot of, and this, everybody has something about them that Julian Slowik intentionally brought everybody there as his perfect menu, as his perfect final goodbye to cooking, where he was going to kill everybody and kill himself. And spoilers, almost everybody dies at the end when Julian Slowik turns them into human marshmallows. Or human s'mores, I should say. The only one to escape was Anna Taylor-Joy, and she's basically the main protagonist here, or antagonist, I should say. Whereas Julian Slowik is the villain, even though everybody is portrayed in a bad sense in this movie. However, I did a terrible job. I did a terrible job explaining that, but it's a very strange movie to actually go into depth to, because there's a lot of moving parts, and this movie was definitely something that was up my alley in terms of the cinematography, and the pacing of it was very, very good. The acting, of course, was good. I just don't know if I really like the whole horror comedy aspect. If I want something to be a horror, I want to be fully enveloped in it. I want to be fully immersed into the universe. Where with this, there were some jokes that hit, but it felt like that wouldn't have been said at that time. And some of the decision making was a little bit wonky, but then you have to remember it is a movie, so you got to cut them some slack. But overall, I think I had super high expectations going into this, because thanks to my brother and sister, and it just didn't live up to that. So I liked the movie, and I would recommend it. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I think I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, simply because it does provide qualities that I typically enjoy. However, I was just let down a bit based on, what I thought it was going to be. And I know I butchered the synopsis of the film. Go on to Wikipedia and read it like I'm trying to do. But I will say that it definitely was a movie that I can see maybe won some awards, or was nominated for some awards. I'm trying to see if there was any big awards. Golden Globes. They had 2 nominations: Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy; Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy. So they got some Academy Awards nominations, which is pretty cool. None of them won, but it was definitely, I definitely would recommend the movie. Let's put it that way. I definitely would recommend it. Next week's movie review is going to be bonkers because Friday night, 7:15 p.m., here in our local luxury cinema, myself, my brother, my mom, and my dad, all of us got tickets to see John Wick 4. Now, this is usually a movie I'd see on a Thursday night because it's my most anticipated movie of the year, but I have to see this movie with my dad because he's the one who got me into John Wick, and this is one of the only movies where his ass will come out to the theaters to see it, and I'm not going to miss that opportunity because I love going to the movies, and I want to share the experience with my dad. I think the last movie he went to was... He went to The Batman, I think. I'm pretty sure he went to The Batman, which was fun. I mean, he doesn't come out to many movies. I remember he came out to Anchorman 2 with me in 2013. I still remember that. But and my mom is my beautiful mom's coming too. So like it's a family affair. We're gonna go watch 3 hours of John Wick 4, which on Rotten Tomatoes, I mentioned last week that it was at 89%, which is a fantastic rating on Rotten Tomatoes. After more reviews, it went up to a 93%. Now, I follow a lot of movie accounts, and I try to keep up with the big movies and their reviews and what they're doing. There's not many times where a movie starts off at a number, and then with more reviews that come in, it goes up, especially by 4%, from 89 to 93. I'm not sure what it's at right now. I can check real quick. But the last time I did check, which was this weekend, it was at a 93%. Let's go on to Rotten Tomatoes right now and see what it's at. It's at a 94% right now after 122 reviews. Damn. I am so excited for this movie. It's getting some of the best reviews that I've ever seen a movie get before. And what makes it, and I talked about this last time, but what makes it most impressive is that this is the 4th movie in the franchise. Number 1 was good. Number 2 got a little bit better reviews, I think. Number 3 didn't get the best reviews. It was still loved. Everybody loved it. But then this is getting reviews that just blow all those out of the water, and it's very impressive to me. So I will be seeing that this Friday. It's locked in, 7:15 p.m. I already have my ticket, and we will be talking about that movie in depth next week. I will come with notes and be prepared. I was not prepared for the menu, but that's how we rock and roll, baby. We fly by the seat of our pants. So we are going to get into the whiskey reviews now. We're about a half hour in. And I pulled up the information here about Keeper's Heart, which is a blend of Irish whiskey and American whiskey. Like I said, we have 2 of the blends here. We have the Irish and American rye, and we have the Irish and bourbon blends, which we'll be drinking. The Irish and bourbon blend consists of triple distilled pot still whiskey and grain whiskey from Ireland, along with a 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley. Bourbon, which is at least a 4-year-old bourbon aged in virgin oak barrels. The rye is the same thing. It is a Irish single pot still, triple distilled pot still, and a grain whiskey mixed with the 95.5 rye whiskey blend. Also at least 4 years old. A little bit about Keeper's Heart, and like I said, you can check out the Bourbon with Friends podcast with Keeper's Heart. I was not on it. Again, I had some stuff that I had to deal with at that time, but we did have Paul and Shanda on that episode, and they talked to Keeper's Heart's master distiller. He was the former master distiller for Jameson. His name is Brian Nation. And Brian, let's see here. Let's read his. Yeah, he was at Jameson. He was at Redbreast, because that's all done by Middleton Distillery. Michael O'Shaughnessy is the owner, it looks like. who I think we had on the podcast. But they have a really cool story. I mean, they're innovating in the fact that they're bringing back the Irish pot still method in larger capacities than we typically see, especially in America in the 21st century. Several years ago, cousins Patrick and Michael O'Shaughnessy, along with Michael's father Jerry, were sharing a bottle of whiskey. It was the end of a long and joyous day at an O'Shaughnessy family reunion, where hundreds of relatives traveled from around the world to spend time together. They were reflecting on the importance of family and how to make sure future generations stayed connected and on the legacy they wanted to leave. As conversation went deeper into the night and more whiskey was poured, they had a realization. The answer was in the glass. It was at that point that they set out to create a whiskey that celebrated their Irish-American heritage. I can appreciate that. That built a way for friends and family to connect today and left a legacy for future generations. The cousins set off to make a whiskey, and their first stop was the family homeland of Ireland. They figured that if they want to make a whiskey that celebrates their Irish-American heritage, they might as well go to the source. As the cousins set off to the Emerald Isle, they sent a chance email to whom they considered the finest master distiller in the world, Brian Nation. Much to their surprise, Brian responded, and they set up a 30-minute meeting in Cork, Ireland. Well, that 30-minute meeting turned into a 5-hour meal as Michael, Patrick, Jerry, Brian, and his wife Una created an immediate connection. A new family was forming and a vision was emerging to blend the best of Irish and American whiskey traditions to create something entirely new. The new team set out to make their vision a reality. They produced some of the finest stocks of aged Irish whiskey, but they knew that was not enough. To realize their vision, they knew they needed their own whiskey. They needed a place where Brian could fulfill his desire to innovate, to push the category, and to blend the best of the Irish and American traditions. So they created O'Shaughnessy Distillery in their hometown of Minneapolis and warmly welcomed the Nation family to this side of the pond. O'Shaughnessy Distillery was built in an old potato factory and features the key to making Irish-style whiskey, our 3 beautiful copper pot stills. And yeah, they have a very in-depth website, so I would suggest checking it out. But that's essentially the story. A couple Irish Americans wanted to get something. I was like, hey, let's take American whiskey. Let's take Irish whiskey. Let's blend them together. Let's see what happens. Let's get one of the best Irish whiskey master distillers on the planet, Brian Nation, to help us out. And that's what they did. And that's the whiskey that we have here today. We're going to start with the Keeper's Heart Irish and American whiskey blend. Irish whiskey is blended with American rye whiskey. We combine the unique qualities of Irish grain and single pot still whiskeys with American rye whiskey for a remarkable drinking experience. 43% ABV. Keeper's Heart is whiskey that celebrates and unlocks the moments worth keeping. Made with pride and a keen eye for time-tested quality, Keeper's Heart pulls from only the heart of the distillate, blending Irish and American styles and techniques. In this expression, the Irish whiskey delivers a nuanced, herbal character that balances the vibrant and robust rye. Crafted by world-renowned master distiller Brian Nation, our whiskeys unlock the best of times among friends and family. Enjoy every moment, for as our family motto says, Fugit ora, the hour flies. I definitely butchered that Gaelic right there. But let's drink it, man. All that reading got me tired, and it got me thirsty. So this is the Keeper's Heart Irish and American Rye Whiskey Blend. Again, coming in at 43% ABV or 86 proof. Let's see what we think of it here. It's won a bunch of awards as well. But let's see what we think. Let's give it a little sniffy poo. It smells like a brighter rye. Like, it does have that bit of herbalness to it. Ow. But you can still smell the malt on the back end of the nose. It's nothing overpowering, though, because what I do get the most is a sense of, like, a very strong, like, almost young alcohol nose on it. Like, it's very pungent, especially for 86 proof. It's very, very pungent. But if you get past that, there is a bit of a rye spice there. There's a bit of a honey grain maltiness, which is very common in an Irish whiskey. A little bit of a spice there, nothing too much. There's not a whole lot going on in the nose. It's actually, I thought there was going to be more going on, seeing as it's a blend of two different whiskey styles, but Yeah, the nose is okay. I mean, it smells much higher proof than it actually is, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But we'll drink it and find out because that's all that matters is how it tastes. So, cheers. Dram number 1, Keeper's Heart Irish and American Rye Whiskey Blend. Interesting. I get a lot more of a caramel honey note on the palate, like very much so. A little bit of a rye spice right there, a little bit of a tobacco sweetness. This is actually pretty good for a sip. No, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty friggin' impressed. I didn't think it was gonna be this good. But that was only the first sip. Let me take a sip of water. And get another sip. Yeah, this is definitely more flavorful than the nose leads on. Lots of honey and tobacco sweetness, a little bit of a rye spice. The proof definitely doesn't hit as much as you think it does on the nose. Much more flavorful. I get a lot of honey on this, a lot of bright grains almost. I would almost say it's corn, but it's not corn. I know it's not corn. But some honey, a little bit of bright fruit. There's a tad bit of like a specific apple, but it's more. I got that rye spice is pretty heavy in this one. A little bit of cinnamon as well. This is not bad. This is actually not bad at all, especially for 86 proof. But what I want to do, because this is we're doing a double pourri poo here, is I want to compare it to the bourbon, which I've had a small sip of in the past. Irish whiskeys blended with American bourbon. We combine the unique qualities of Irish grain and single pot still whiskeys with American bourbon for a remarkable drink experience. This is 46%, so this is a few proof points higher. This is 92 proof. Keeper's Heart is whiskey that celebrates and unlocks the moments worth keeping. Crafted by world-renowned master distiller Brian Nation and made with a keen eye for time-tested quality, Keeper's Heart pulls from only the heart of the distillate, blending Irish and American styles and techniques. The characteristic sweet taste of bourbon intertwined with notes of freshly charred virgin oak pair beautifully with the earthy spices of the single Irish pot still whiskey and the delicate butterscotch sweetness from the Irish grain whiskey to deliver a unique tasting experience. Again, this is 46% alcohol by volume, so it's a few proof points higher. I'm interested to see what I think of this one right off the bat of the Irish one. So this one, the nose on the rye is much brighter than the one on than the nose on the bourbon blends. This is very oak and a bit darker in tone than the rye is. I get that classic vanilla. I actually don't get any Irish whiskey notes on this at all in terms of the nose. This is very oak and very dark vanilla forward. You can tell the oak is definitely influencing the whiskey here. Again, that like alcohol vaporness comes out where it's kind of overwhelming at first. It is only 92 proof, so it shouldn't be hitting me in the nose as much as it is. I get a little bit of like a mustiness, kind of like a corn on there, like a cracked corn with some dust on it. Like if you went into a warehouse and there's a dusty bag of cracked corn you got to get for your chickens. And I guess there's a little bit of that appleness on there, but not barely any. That might be me reaching. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's see what we think and see if it's good. Cheers. Oops. Keeper's Heart, Irish and bourbon blend. Same thing on this. Ooh, a little bit of a spice on the back there. Totally deceiving from the nose. I didn't particularly like the nose, but I gotta put these here. I didn't hate the nose, but there's a lot of vanilla on this as well. That oak makes itself a bit less present on the palate. I get a little bit of a cherry on there. A bit more honey than I normally get with a bourbon. And I think that has something to do with the Irish aspect to it. Irish whiskey is famous to me for bright apple and malted grain and that honey, like cereal aspect to it. It's what I always get on Irish whiskey, so I'm not surprised I get honey on both of these, actually. But which one's better? Because we're going head-to-head on this episode. Which one's better? Yeah, there's definitely a pretty strong honey aspect on the bourbon, much more than I get on any other bourbons that are around this proof point and also this age of around 4 years. That's definitely influenced by the Irish whiskey distillate that's in here. Now that I smell the rye after taking a bit on the bourbon, this is definitely a bit more tangy in a sense. The rye just is so much less in terms of proof, but the flavor is there, and I think that's why I kind of like the rye a little bit more. Is even though it's a lesser proof, it's not much of a lesser proof, but the flavors are present that much more because there's not as much proof in there. It's not much alcohol by percentage in the rye. And I do think that I like the rye a little bit better. Let me try it one more time. This will be my final decision because I am pretty tired. The bourbon wins the nose for sure, just because I do like a little bit of oak, and that doesn't make itself present in the rye. No, I think I like the bourbon a little bit better. I do get a bit more oak on the bourbon as well, but there's also, if you're gonna give me two sweet notes and it's gonna be between honey and vanilla, I'm taking the vanilla 10 times out of 10, and that's what I get 10 times more of on the bourbon than I do on the rye. So I think the overall the bourbon is a little bit better. They're each pretty good bottles. The Irish aspects to this whiskey definitely makes itself present, but it's not as much as I thought it was going to be. I didn't think I was going to have to really search and try to find that Irish whiskey note, and I didn't think that Irish whiskey note was necessarily going to be the sweeter honey aspect. I thought maybe it was going to be the malted grain aspect, or maybe the green apple aspect, or the cereal aspect, but nonetheless, it's the honey aspect of an Irish whiskey that I always get that I'm finding mostly in these bottles, which I'm not mad at. Both of these bottles I think are pretty good. Right on their website, yes, I'm on legal drinking age. These are selling for, the rye is selling for $29.99 and the bourbon selling for $34.99. So pretty inexpensive. I think these are the two, definitely the two whiskeys that are kind of their base, I think. And again, thank you to Keeper's Heart for sending these. Pretty good price point. I mean, for $45, I can definitely buy a lot more that I would like more. But I mean, these are solid, man. I'm gonna give these like a 7.8, and the rye maybe a 7.6. Like it's pretty good. If I saw a bottle and I had never tried this before, I'd probably buy it. I do like the bourbon a little bit better. It's not much better, but I do like it a little bit better, which is why it has a better score. I don't know how many states this whiskey's available in, so you might not be able to find it, but it looks like they have plenty on their online store, so maybe check out over there. But that's going to do it for me tonight, you guys. I got to go to bed, and I got to prepare myself for John Wick in 2 nights and really come prepared for a quality movie review next week. So I appreciate you guys checking out the podcast. Is this the last week of Irish Whiskey? No way. No, next week is the last week of Irish Whisky Month here at Who Gives A Dram Studios. If you're not following the podcast, make sure Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is at Who Gives A Dram. Make sure you're subscribed on wherever you're listening to this. Make sure you're going to YouTube. Click the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so you always get notified when I post a new video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what whiskey you want me to see to review next. And make sure you rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. That's really the best way that I can grow this show. Check out Bourbon with Friends. You can find me over there twice a week. And yeah, man, that's about going to do it. Thanks again to everybody, to 291 and 10th Mountain out in Colorado for a fantastic weekend. Thank you, Matt, for showing us around as well and meeting us out there and spending a few nights with us. That was very fun. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Be safe. And I hope you drink some whiskey. I'm going to leave it at that. But thank you guys so much. And always remember, I'm going to do it with 2 glasses now. Whiskey's the water of life. So let's start living. That was so dumb. See you, everybody.